Excellent, thank you. Hello, everyone. Okay, so before starting to talk about class contract, I just wanted to make sure that we all understand what we mean by class contracts. So I made a little definition that you can read. Okay, so why am I talking about class contracts? Because I started working in a further education college about 6 years ago, and among the huge amount of paperwork, I was advised to give a contract to my students detailing what I could expect from them and what they could expect to each other. I'll tell you in a little while what was my initial reaction and what I did next. But first, I'd like to check with you if you've ever done class contracts. So could you do the poll? Basically, what you need to do is click on the answer. The question is, have you made a class contract with your class? I can see that some of you is already doing the poll. Oh, I'm quite surprised actually. Quite a few of you have. Excellent. Okay, so we're going to get a variety of answers. I will stop the poll in a second. Can you confirm? I just need to click on close, Sean, to get the results. Oh, I think it's closed already. Okay. Okay, so quite a few people have at least tried sometimes. Okay, let's move that poll. Excellent. Now, for people who have tried contracts, but also for those who've never tried them, could you write in the chat box what you think the advantages and the disadvantages of having a contract with your class are? So if you take a few seconds to write the advantages and disadvantages to writing a contract with your class. Yes, obviously we all have different contexts. My context was teaching adults, but with quite a few different learning styles and very different ages and backgrounds, etc. Okay, I'll give you a few more seconds to write your thoughts, and we'll move on. Very interesting comments about having too many rules. Obviously, read other people's comments as well. Okay, we'll try to bear your comments in mind, so, particularly because of particularly regarding the disadvantages, what to do when people break the contract, having to stick to the contract. Okay, and the fact that if we're dealing with adults, it might be a little bit more difficult to make them admit to make them accept a contract. Okay, great. So we'll move on and see if we can maybe answer some of these questions. Okay, so first I'll show you what my initial thought was when I was asked to write to give a contract to my students. I was actually quite surprised because in my previous context, I worked with adults, roughly same background. I'd never really had any big problems. I would say a few usual issues. But because it was a new context, I thought, well, maybe in this context I will need it. So I tried to anyway, and I was given a model of a contract, which you might find maybe the reason for some of your reactions. For example, that it was quite long. There were quite a few rules. But anyway, I tried it because I was new to this. I tried to give exactly the contract I was recommended to my students. And this was the reaction to my students. I basically just gave them the contract and said, have a look at it. If there's anything that you don't like, tell me, or if there's anything you would like to add or change, tell me. Okay, so that was my students' reaction that I'll let you read. As you can see, the majority of students thought it was more admin, that it shouldn't be necessary, we're all adults. Some of them just complied because they're nice and they just said, oh, okay. But then I started to get some reactions of people who did want to add something or change something. And bit by bit, I realized it was not necessarily just the idea of the contract that was important, but really the way that you did the contract. And also I started to think, well, when you do a contract normally, you don't give a contract to someone to sign, you discuss a contract and then you sign it if you all agree with it. So instead of just giving a contract like this, I started letting them come up with the rules themselves. And over the months and the years, what I found out were the following points, which I'll show you, and I'll go through each of them quickly. Well, the first thing is that good attitude, even for adults, is not obvious for everything. People interrupting each other, people laughing about each other's mistakes, arriving late, not participating, refusing to move, and so on and so forth. If your students give you the rules, then they're much more likely to stick to them. At first, when I decided not to give them the contract directly, I told them, okay, just come up with the rules in groups, and then we'll make a contract which will be a compilation of all the rules. The problem is that they didn't quite understand what I meant. They didn't really know what to write. So I gave them a model of contract, the initial model with all the different rules. And then I told them, you can either choose from these rules or you can make up your own. And that was much easier when they had a model. I realized that the more I did this, the more the students actually came up with what they felt about the class. And sometimes they feel very strongly about some aspects of the class and the way that they behave, the way the teacher behaves or other students behave. And they were very happy to say how they felt. I got a lot of information from them, which I didn't always know before. I also learned that if you do this, then it's much easier to deal with problems when they arise, and also maybe some problems won't arise when you have discussed possible issues. Also, sometimes if they discuss some rules, they may come up with a rule which is irrelevant. For example, something I can't do anything about, like someone asked me if we could start the lesson 5 minutes later because the previous class took a long time to leave. But even though I couldn't do anything about that, I went to my boss to see if we could do something about this, and then we managed to do it. So other things could come up in the discussion which are not relevant to the actual contract, but which you could still do something about. And also, having a contract that I discuss with my students, it gives me the opportunity myself to say what I would like to include, and in a way, when they have been able to say what they would like, then they're much more likely to accept things which I find are important for me. So I'll just give you a few examples. Tell me, Sean, if I'm running too much over. A few consequences. So in blue, it's the kind of things I said to my students, and in green, what they have said. So, for example, I asked my students to change place regularly, and I noticed that one of the students who used to sit in the same place for a while has changed, and I praised her, and she referred back to the contract. So people do refer back to it and do take notice of what they've discussed. Also, if we've discussed lateness, when someone arrives late, it's much easier to go towards them and say, do you have difficulties arriving on time? If you have discussed that, quite often people think about the contract. You don't necessarily have to say, remember, it was in the contract. It will come up much easier. And another few suggestions. Students told me, for example, that they find it really annoying if I say that an activity is finished, that the others continue speaking. And I was really glad that they did that, because it was annoying for everybody. So we come up together with a solution of what we do when there's something that annoys you, and we suggested that when I stop an activity, the first people who notice then tell the others to stop talking, for example. Other really constructive suggestions have been made by students. So, for example, they asked me if we could keep 5 minutes at the end of the class for questions which are unrelated to the lesson. And we implemented that, and that's working really well, because lots of people have interesting questions that have come up during the week. I'll just show you one more slide of a few examples. Sorry, I'm in the dark. Anyway, so yes, another couple of things that I added myself.